Quick question for bilinguals. Do you feel like the same person when you speak your different languages? I'm going to ask my dad what he thinks because he's on set with me today and he's bilingual. Welcome, Dad, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Okay, to get on to your question then, do I feel the same person when I use one language or another?
Well, before you answer, let's just give a little bit of context to our viewers. So my dad is a native English speaker. You're originally from London.
Yes.
But you've been living in France for how many years?
Oh, quite a long time, shall we say.
Yeah. Donc tu parles français aussi, n'est-ce pas, papa?
Si, je parle français couramment apparemment. Mais il s'avère que j'ai un petit accent anglais quand même.
C'est vrai. Super. Great. So he's fluent in both English and in French. So now you may answer my question. Do you feel like you're the same person when you speak in English as when you speak in French?
Well, it's interesting because although I think I have a command of both languages, I do feel a slight difference. I feel I'm more, I'm not quite the same in each language, yes.
That's interesting. I also get that feeling. Something definitely changes when you switch languages. Have you ever heard of the theory called the different personality effect?
It rings a bell, yes.
So let's try something simple. I'll ask you a question in English, but the same question in English and then in French.
Right, let's do it.
How would you describe yourself in 3 words?
Spontaneous, curious, relaxed.
Yeah. Et maintenant en français, comment tu te décrirais en 3 mots?
Je suis réservé, prudent, formel.
See, same person, different energy.
Exactly. When I speak French, I feel I have to choose my words more carefully.
I've noticed that. That's true. Yeah.
Of course, in English, I fool around a bit more as well. It's more relaxed. That's me.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. I feel like French has more social codes.
Yes, and that does, in fact, influence the way I behave. I feel I do change in certain ways. For example, look at the use of the pronoun you. In English, it's just one word, but in French, we have 2 words, vous and tu. Okay, and they're very often used to help people keep themselves at a distance. For example, you would never speak to strangers using the word tu. That it's just not done. It has to be vous. And on the contrary, if you're with somebody you know and love, you're not going to use vous. You're going to use tu.
Yeah, that's a perfect example, Dad. Even when you're fluent in the language, you feel there's a social context behind you, and that influences how you act, how you behave, and what you say.
Yes, that's true. That is true to some extent, yes. Yes, so for me, in French, I slow down, shall we say. I soften things. I'm more careful about the words I use. Although because I've been living in France for so long, I'm also able to adapt to different situations, different environments.
Environments. That's interesting because we learn languages in different environments. So usually your first language is tied to childhood, family, and even emotions.
Yes, and that's why I like to joke in English. It's much easier for me.
Let's show your best jokes are in English, actually.
Yes, that's probably why nobody laughs at my jokes in French.
No comment on that. But let's move on. So then your second language is usually linked to work, school, even travel and media.
Yes, in fact, psychologists found that bilinguals often associate different emotions and behaviors with each language they speak. And as you said, it's very much tied to context. We learn our languages in different contexts. Native language is obviously tied to childhood, family, school. So we're talking about very emotional memories.
Yeah, that's true. So when we switch languages, we don't just switch words.
Second language is learned in a more controlled or professional setting. This has an impact on the way we actually feel, which in turn influences the way we act and speak.
That's true. So it doesn't mean that the second language you speak it worse or anything.
No.
It just means that it requires a different version of you to show up.
That's one good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Yes, I'd say so.
True.
Yes.
So now we'd like to know, do you feel different when you change languages?
Tell us in the comments. We'd really like to know what changes you the most.
And how?
And how, yes.
Yes, great being here. I do feel different. And my daughter's fixing up my microphone wonderfully. She's so gifted, and I suppose actually so am I. Must have come from the same family.
If you learned something new from this video, give it a thumbs up. Then, hit subscribe and turn on your notifications. Have a look around our channel for more hacks and tips. And if you're watching on another social media platform, like or follow our page. See you next time.